The Orchid Gambit. The Red Rock Women's Correctional Facility in rural Arizona was a fortress of monotonous oppression. Concrete walls, razor wire gleaming under an impossibly bright desert sun, and the relentless, sterile scent of disinfectant that seemed to cling to the skin of anyone who spent more than a day inside. Life was divided into tedious, repeating segments: wake up at 6 a.m., chow at 7 o'clock, work until noon, then more work, dinner, and finally lights out at 10 p.m. Day after day, year after year. On one scorching August afternoon, a new inmate arrived to disrupt this rigidly ordered world. Evelyn Evie Carter, 29, was transferred from a facility in Alabama to serve the remainder of her 7-year sentence for large-scale financial fraud. She stood apart from the other women, tall, slender, with intense hazel eyes that seemed to look right through people. Her dark hair was pulled back into a severe ponytail, accentuating her sharp cheekbones and controlled features. "Carter, this is your cell for the next 7 years," announced Guard Johnson, a stern woman in her 50s with a face like a dried apple, pointing to a room with 2 metal bunks. "Your cellmate is Lopez. She'll be back in an hour. Don't break my rules, and you might live to see the end of your sentence." Evie nodded silently, entered the cell, and placed her thin sack of belongings on the top bunk. "Hey, top bunk," a voice came from the opposite corner. Leaning against the wall was a Latina woman with hair tied back in a messy knot. Marisol Lopez, she introduced herself, stepping closer to study the newcomer. "Evelyn Carter," Evie replied, claiming her space. "From a small town near Mobile, Alabama." "Alabama?" Marisol chuckled. "What did you do to get transferred to this sun-scorched paradise?" Evie took her time answering, meticulously organizing her few possessions as if adjusting to a new home. "Let's just say there was a conflict of interest with the administration back there," she finally said, turning to Marisol. "What about you?" "Distributing prescription meds without a license," Marisol shrugged. "Used to be a nurse, selling pain pills. Been in for 3 years, got 2 more to go." Evie nodded. Useful information. A former nurse could be an invaluable asset. Over the next few days, Evie observed the facility, the staff, and the inmates. She learned that the warden, Robert "Rob" Higgins, was widely viewed as strict but fair. She discovered the small library offered a pocket of freedom from surveillance. And most importantly, she identified the most volatile person on the premises, Deputy Warden Mr. Davidson, known for his random cruelty. On her 5th day, Evie was called to the warden's office. Robert Higgins, 44, looked exactly as described, medium height, well-built, with intense blue eyes and salt and pepper hair. He was seated at a large desk with her file open. A framed photograph of Higgins, a smiling woman, and 2 teenagers sat prominently on his desk. "Have a seat, Miss Carter," Higgins said, not looking up. "I'm reviewing your file. Intriguing history." Evie sat, maintaining perfect posture and a composed expression. Her eyes quickly scanned the office, noting the diplomas on the wall, a locked safe in the corner, and a desk calendar. "What do you find interesting, Mr. Higgins?" she asked in a calm voice. Higgins finally looked up, meeting her gaze. For a moment, he seemed surprised by her directness. "For a woman with your education and apparent capability, you chose a life of crime," he said, turning a page. "Bank fraud, identity theft, racketeering. An impressive resume for a young woman. Life sometimes offers a limited playbook, Mr. Higgins," Evie replied coolly. "Especially when you're a woman from a forgotten corner of Alabama with big dreams and few options." Higgins nodded slightly. "Your file also mentions disciplinary issues at your previous location. Conflicts with staff, attempts at manipulation. I want to make one thing clear, Miss Carter. That kind of behavior won't be tolerated here. We have strict rules, and breaking them has severe consequences. I understand, sir. Evie allowed a faint, knowing smile. My only desire is to serve out the rest of my sentence peacefully, without any unnecessary complications. He studied her face, searching for sincerity. His gaze was professionally curious, but Evie noticed something else there, a barely perceptible flicker of a different kind of interest. One she recognized well from her dealings with men in positions of power. Your file indicates experience working in a library, he said after a pause. We might have an opening. It's a privilege, Miss Carter. It offers a certain amount of freedom and better working conditions, but it also demands responsibility and impeccable behavior. I would be grateful for the opportunity, Evie replied. I love books, and I'm good at cataloging. All right. You'll start next week, Higgins said, making a note. In the meantime, you'll need a full medical examination. Standard procedure for all new arrivals. Dr. Wilson is expecting you this afternoon. The diagnosis and the target later that day, in the infirmary, drive. James Wilson, a man in his early 50s with receding hair and kind, weary eyes, greeted her. Miss Carter, welcome to Red Rock, he said, pointing to an examination table. Standard intake exam and medical history review. Evie sat, watching as the doctor reviewed her records. I see you're on antiretroviral therapy, he said, looking up from the folder. For 5 years, according to the records. Yes, doctor, Evie answered calmly. I'm fully aware of my condition and the necessary treatment. Dr. Wilson made a note. Your blood counts look stable, which is excellent. We'll continue the same regimen. You must understand the importance of taking your medication consistently. I understand, doctor. I've never missed a dose. Evie looked him directly in the eye. May I ask who else knows about my diagnosis? Dr. Wilson put down his pen. Patient confidentiality is maintained even in prison, Miss Carter. Your status is known only to me and the medical staff directly involved in your treatment. Administration has access to medical records, but only as a whole. They don't go into specifics unless there's a compelling reason to do so. Evie nodded thoughtfully. The information was critical. Higgins may or may not know about her HIV status. 5 years ago, Evie, a bright, ambitious young woman from the small town of Harvest Creek, Alabama, had dreamed of a career in law. That changed the evening when Deputy Sheriff James Jim Rodriguez offered her a ride home from a local bar. Evie refused, but his persistence escalated into a terrifying assault on a deserted road outside of town. 3 months later, she learned her HIV status. Her attempt to seek justice backfired. Rodriguez was well connected, and she was just a waitress with a questionable story. Her life fell apart, replaced by a consuming rage and a thirst for vengeance. She started small, which grew into complex financial schemes. And now, serving her sentence, she found a new target in Higgins. The partnership that evening, as most inmates watched TV in the common area, Evie and Marisol talked in low whispers in their cell. You said you were a nurse, Evie began. What kind of nursing? I worked in the infectious disease ward at Phoenix City Hospital, Marisol replied. Got caught up in the pill pushing 3 years ago. So you know infectious diseases? Evie looked intently at her cellmate. Why are you asking, Evie? I need someone I can trust. Evie lowered her voice to a whisper. Someone with medical training and no unnecessary morals. That sounds dangerous. I have HIV, she finally said. Contracted not by choice but by a man who escaped justice. I lost everything. Now, I want someone else to feel the same way. I'm targeting the prison warden. Warden Higgins. Marisol's eyes widened. You want to intentionally infect someone? That's a serious crime. I'm already serving time for another felony, Evie responded calmly. And I'm planning my death to be the start of his end. I need an accomplice who can help complete my plan after I'm gone. Who can pass the evidence on to the right people? Marisol was silent for a long time. What's in it for me? It could cost me extra time. Because you're the only one here with enough medical knowledge to understand my plan, and because I can help you get out early, Evie leaned closer. Besides, I'm going to leave behind evidence that will take down my original abuser in Alabama as well. Two birds with one stone. Okay, Marisol finally said. I'll help you. I've seen how Higgins treats some of the girls here. Evie extended her hand. Then we're partners. Marisol shook the offered hand. Partners. But I need a clear plan. I have the plan, Evie allowed a faint smile. And it starts in the library next Monday. The seduction and the threat. Evie quickly settled into her job at the Red Rock Library. Her efficiency did not go unnoticed, and Robert Higgins started visiting the library regularly. His visits became longer and more personal. Evie was an attentive listener and skillfully steered the conversation, creating the illusion of a deep, mutual understanding. You're taming him like a wild animal, Marisol observed one evening. That's how you tame dangerous animals, Evie replied quietly. Slowly, patiently, creating the illusion of safety. But by the time the beast realizes it's been fooled, it will be too late. Dr. Wilson, however, noticed the intimacy. Miss Carter, he said during a checkup. I know about your diagnosis, and I also notice that your relationship with Mr. Higgins is becoming more intimate. I must remind you of your responsibilities. My health is under control, Evie answered coldly. As for my relationship with Mr. Higgins, or anyone else, that's none of your professional business. If you interfere, you'll be breaking medical confidentiality. You'll lose your license, drive. Wilson, is it worth it? Wilson looked at her with a mix of fear and disbelief. Why are you doing this? We all have our own sense of justice, Doctor, Evie responded quietly. That evening, Higgins called Evie into his office. Dr. Wilson came to me today, he began. He expressed concern about how much time I spend in the library. He thinks it could be misinterpreted. And what did you say to him? Evie asked. That I'm the warden of this prison, and I decide. Higgins moved closer. He did make me think, Miss Carter, about what's going on between us. Something dangerous. Is that why you come to the library every day? To feel alive? Evie looked him straight in the eyes. Higgins leaned over and kissed her. Their secret meetings progressed to physical intimacy. Evie recorded their conversations and took photographs of their encounters. Finally, she decided the time was right. They were in his office late one night. You know, Robert, I never told you why I really ended up in prison, she began. I was trying to get revenge on a man who assaulted me in Alabama. And the worst part came later, he infected me with HIV. Higgins sat up abruptly, his face turning pale. What? I have HIV, Robert, she replied. I've had it for 5 years. Go get yourself tested. Though I'm afraid it's too late. We had unprotected sex. You did this on purpose. Yes, Robert. Evie finally sat up, looking at him with a cold smile. I infected you to end you, just like they ended me. Now you know what it's like for your life to be destroyed in an instant. Higgins lunged at her, grabbing her by the throat. I'll kill you. Maybe, she croaked, not resisting. But think about it. What happens when your wife finds out? If anything happens to me, the evidence I have, letters, notes, and recordings of us, will be passed on to certain people. Kill me, and you'll guarantee your own demise. I also have information about the man who infected me in Alabama. A double play in one move. Higgins released her, his face a mixture of terror and despair. What do you want? "Justice," Evie replied simply. The final act: Higgins didn't show up at the prison the next day. Evie waited, calm and methodical, knowing he was being tested. 3 days later, he returned, looking exhausted, and called her into his office. "I got the test results," he said in a quiet, hollow voice. "They were positive. You ruined my life," he continued. "Now you know how it feels," she replied. "You won't get out of here alive," he finally whispered. "I've known that from the beginning," Evie replied. "The only question is, how many people I'll take down with me." That evening, a guard led Evie to the back utility room. Inside, Robert Higgins and Deputy Warden Mr. Davidson were waiting. "You have one option," Higgins said. "Tell me where the evidence is, and I'll make sure you die quickly." "Or what?" Evie interrupted him. "No one will look for an inmate who hangs herself in her cell," Davidson said grimly. "The official version is suicide." "How predictable. The evidence is in a safe place. A week after my death, it will be in the hands of investigator Samantha Brooks of the Phoenix Major Crimes Unit. Kill me, and you'll guarantee your own death warrant. That evidence includes my original abuser, too." Davidson stepped forward with a rope. Higgins grabbed Evie's arms. As Davidson threw the rope around her neck, she whispered, "This isn't the end, Robert. It's only the beginning." Justice served the next morning. Evie Carter's body was found in her cell, reported as a suicide. Marisol Lopez was interviewed, maintaining a convincing calm. 2 days later, a thick envelope arrived at investigator Samantha Brooks' office. Inside were Evie's journal, photos, recordings, and a letter detailing her revenge plot, the intentional infection of Higgins and the planned exposure of both him and her first abuser. Samantha Brooks obtained a warrant for exhumation. A new autopsy revealed signs of strangulation. Higgins vanished, but Davidson, facing the irrefutable evidence, confessed to his involvement in Evie's murder. Robert Higgins was found in a motel in Miami and arrested. The trial attracted national attention. Higgins was sentenced to life in prison for first-degree murder and misconduct. Davidson received 20 years. Deputy Sheriff James Rodriguez in Alabama was arrested and charged with rape and intentional infection. Marisol Lopez received a reduced sentence for cooperating. Evie Carter's case led to a serious investigation into conditions and abuses in women's prisons across the country. Her simple headstone in the Red Rock Cemetery bore only one inscription: "Justice served."